With those rags you're wearing, you should be standing in a soup line, not pushing your way in here. The icy voice cut through Burger Palace, leaving the entire restaurant in stunned silence. Corey Adams, a black man in a worn gray hoodie and scuffed sneakers, walked calmly with his food tray in hand, his gaze unusually composed. Bradley Thornton, a white man in an Italian suit and gleaming leather shoes, lounged at the center table, radiating smug entitlement. He cast a sneer toward Corey and muttered, "Didn't think just anyone could walk in here these days." Young employee Sarah flushed red, her fingers fumbling over the register keys. Corey sat quietly, chewing his burger as if he hadn't heard a word. But a sharpness had crept into his eyes. The whole place seemed to freeze in silent tension. Corey didn't respond. Not yet. But when Bradley discovers his phone has vanished, he'll realize exactly who he just insulted. That man in the hoodie is about to make the whole restaurant hold its breath. Don't miss the comeback that will shake the entire city. Bradley approaches the counter with the swagger of entitlement, his leather shoes clicking against the tile. He leans against the register where Sarah Chen stands nervously, her college textbook barely hidden beneath the counter. "I'll take the executive meal," he declares, though no such item exists on the menu. "Make sure it's fresh. I'm particular about quality." Sarah nods politely, her voice steady despite the intimidating presence. "Of course, sir." "Would you like our premium burger combo?" "That'll do." Bradley's eyes drift toward Corey, and his expression shifts almost imperceptibly. A slight tightening around his eyes, a barely perceptible curl of his lip. He leans closer to Sarah, his voice dropping to what he assumes is a whisper but carries clearly across the quiet restaurant. "This neighborhood sure has changed, hasn't it? Different clientele these days." Sarah's discomfort is visible as she processes the order, her fingers fumbling slightly with the register keys. Bradley continues his commentary, seemingly oblivious to her unease. "I remember when this place catered to working professionals. Now you get all types wandering in." Corey continues eating, but his shoulders tense slightly. He's heard this song before. The coded language, the sideways glances, the assumption that his presence somehow diminishes the establishment. His jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, but he maintains his composure, taking another measured bite of his burger. When Corey stands to refill his drink, Bradley positions himself directly in his path, forcing an uncomfortable proximity. "Excuse me," Corey says quietly, his tone respectful but firm. Bradley makes a show of stepping aside, but not before muttering, just loud enough to be heard, "Some people really need to learn restaurant etiquette." The comment hangs in the air like smoke, acrid and unmistakable in its intent. Sarah's eyes dart between the two men, sensing the tension building like a storm front. Other patrons begin to take notice, conversations dropping to whispers as they pick up on the undercurrent of hostility. Corey returns to his seat without acknowledging the slight, but something has shifted in his demeanor. His movements remain calm, controlled, but there's a new alertness in his posture, the watchful stillness of someone who's learned to recognize danger in its many forms. Bradley settles into a table strategically positioned near Corey, spreading his belongings across the surface like territorial markers. His phone, wallet, and keys create a shrine to his perceived importance, each item carefully placed for maximum visibility. He answers a call with theatrical volume, discussing property deals and investment portfolios with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to being overheard. $50 million in commercial real estate, Bradley proclaims into his phone, his voice carrying across the restaurant. The Henderson project alone will transform this entire district. His eyes flick toward Corey repeatedly, as if expecting admiration or intimidation. And Corey receives his own call, speaking in hushed tones that contrast sharply with Bradley's performance. "Sarah, reschedule the 3 o'clock meeting to tomorrow," he says quietly, his voice barely audible above the restaurant's ambient noise. The name catches Bradley's attention, and his brows furrow with curiosity and suspicion. A memory surfaces in Corey's mind. 10 years ago, sitting in this same restaurant after losing his job, watching well-dressed professionals dismiss him with casual glances, he remembers the burning shame of being judged by his appearance, the quiet determination that sparked his ambition. He'd promised himself then that he would create spaces where everyone felt welcome, where dignity wasn't determined by designer labels or zip codes. The memory fades as Sarah approaches Bradley's table with his order, her hands slightly unsteady under his scrutinizing gaze. As she sets down his drink, a few drops of condensation slip from the glass onto the table, creating small puddles near his sleeve. "Watch what you're doing," Bradley snaps, his voice sharp enough to silence nearby conversations. "This suit cost $3,000, and I have a client meeting in an hour." Sarah's face flushes crimson as she quickly grabs napkins, dabbing at the minimal moisture. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get that cleaned up right away." Corey rises from his seat, his movement fluid but purposeful. "It was just a small accident," he says calmly, his voice cutting through Bradley's bluster. "She's already taking care of it." Bradley's head whips toward Corey, his eyes narrowing with indignation. "Nobody asked for your opinion. I'm dealing with incompetent service here." "She apologized and corrected the mistake immediately," Corey replies, his tone remaining level. "Everyone has accidents sometimes. It's how we handle them that matters." The restaurant has grown quieter, patrons sensing the confrontation brewing between the two men. Sarah continues cleaning, her movements quick and nervous as she becomes an unwilling centerpiece in their standoff. Bradley's jaw tightens as he realizes his authority is being questioned publicly, his carefully constructed image of superiority challenged by someone he'd already dismissed as irrelevant. "Hey, her question is..." The restaurant has grown quieter, people distinctly frowning, as someone he'd already dismissed as irrelevant. "Maybe you should mind your own business," Bradley says, his voice carrying a warning edge. "Some of us understand proper standards." Corey holds his gaze steadily, neither backing down nor escalating. But something passes between them. A recognition that this conflict has moved beyond a simple misunderstanding into something far more personal and dangerous. Bradley's phone sits on his table like a glittering trophy, its screen reflecting the overhead lights as he heads toward the restroom. The expensive device seems to pulse with importance, a tangible symbol of his success and status. When he returns 3 minutes later, his eyes immediately scan the table's surface with growing alarm. "Where's my phone?" The question explodes from him with such force that conversations throughout the restaurant cease abruptly. His hands frantically search through his belongings, patting down his pockets and scanning the floor around his chair. Sarah looks up from behind the counter, her expression genuinely confused. "Sir, I haven't seen anyone near your table." Bradley's gaze lands on Corey like a predator spotting prey. The accusation forms in his eyes before it reaches his lips, a terrible certainty building in his expression. "You," he says, pointing directly at Corey with a trembling finger. "You were sitting right there. When I left..." Corey looks up from his meal, his expression calm but alert. "I haven't moved from my seat since you went to the restroom." "Don't lie to me." Bradley's voice reaches a pitch that makes several patrons physically recoil. "iPhone 15 Pro Max, black case, worth over $1,000. I saw you looking at it earlier." The accusation hangs in the air like poison gas, its implications clear to everyone present. Sarah's face goes pale as she realizes the direction this confrontation is heading. Other customers begin pulling out their phones, some recording, others simply watching in horrified fascination. "I don't have your phone," Corey states firmly, his voice carrying the weight of truth and dignity. Bradley's laugh is harsh and bitter. "Of course you'd deny it. That's what thieves do, isn't it? Sarah, call security. I want this man searched immediately." Sarah's hands shake as she grips the counter. "Sir, I don't have the authority to..." "Then call the police," Bradley's face reddens with rage and righteous indignation. This is theft, plain and simple. I bet this isn't his first time either. Probably has a record as long as my arm. The racist implication cuts through the restaurant like a blade, creating a moment of stunned silence. Corey's hands clench slightly, the first visible crack in his composed facade. His eyes narrow, and for just a moment, the careful control he's maintained begins to fray at the edges. I paid for my meal just like everyone else here, Corey says, his voice carrying a new edge of steel. I'm a customer, not a criminal. Bradley scoffs loudly, playing to his audience. A customer? With that outfit? What did you pay with? Food stamps? The cruelty of the comment draws audible gasps from nearby tables. Several patrons shift uncomfortably, while others lean forward with morbid curiosity. Bradley seems to feed off the attention, his performance growing more animated with each passing moment. Corey slowly stands, his full height imposing despite his casual attire. His eyes never leave Bradley's face as he reaches into his pocket and produces a receipt, holding it up for everyone to see. I have my receipt right here. I paid cash, and I tipped, but Bradley is beyond reason now, drunk on his own righteousness and the power of public accusation. Receipts can be faked. I know your type. You come into decent neighborhoods looking for opportunities. The words strike like physical blows, each one designed to strip away Corey's humanity and reduce him to a stereotype. But Corey remains standing, his dignity intact despite the assault, his presence a silent rebuke to everything Bradley represents. Bradley pulls out his phone with theatrical flourish, his fingers dancing across the screen with practiced ease. I'm calling the police right now, he announces to the restaurant at large, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Theft in progress at Burger Palace downtown. The suspect is a black male, gray hoodie, approximately 6 feet tall. The clinical description hangs in the air like an indictment, reducing Corey to nothing more than a police report statistic. Other customers exchange uncomfortable glances, some recording the scene while others debate whether to intervene or simply observe the unfolding drama. Corey remains standing, his posture straight and unwavering despite the character assassination taking place around him. Before you make false accusations, he says, his voice cutting through Bradley's phone conversation, perhaps we should check the security cameras. Bradley covers his phone's microphone and shoots Corey a withering look. Security cameras? Right. Like your accomplices in this place haven't already dealt with those. Sarah probably turned them off the moment I stepped away from my table. Sarah's face goes white at the implication, her hands trembling as she grips the counter for support. I would never. I don't even have access to the camera system. Only management can. Management? Bradley interrupts with a cruel laugh. Where is management? Probably in on it too. This whole place is probably a front for criminal activity. The accusation spreads like wildfire through the restaurant, customers murmuring among themselves as they reassess their surroundings. Some begin gathering their belongings, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, while others seem drawn to the spectacle, like moths to flame. Corey observes the security camera mounted in the corner, its red light blinking steadily as it records everything. His eyes track its field of view, calculating angles and coverage areas with the precision of someone who understands surveillance systems intimately. Bradley ends his call and immediately opens Facebook Live, his phone's camera capturing the tense scene. Folks, I'm broadcasting live from what I thought was a respectable restaurant in downtown. I've just been robbed, and the staff here is protecting the criminal. Comments begin flooding the live stream immediately, viewers taking sides based on limited information and personal biases. Some support Bradley's narrative, while others question his approach and tone. The viewer count climbs steadily as people share the stream, spreading the incident across social media platforms. Look at this situation, Bradley continues, turning his phone toward Corey. I'm a respected businessman who's contributed to this community for over a decade. I pay taxes, I employ people, I support local businesses. And this is what I get? Robbed in broad daylight while the staff looks the other way? Corey watches the phone camera with measured calm, understanding that his response will be preserved and disseminated across the internet. He chooses his words carefully, speaking directly to the lens and the thousands of viewers beyond. I'm not a criminal, he states simply, his voice carrying quiet authority. I'm a customer who came here to eat lunch in peace. I haven't stolen anything, and I haven't threatened anyone. Bradley scoffs audibly. Of course you'd say that. But actions speak louder than words, don't they? You were the only person near my table. You had opportunity and motive. What else am I supposed to think? The live stream continues, capturing every word, every gesture, every moment of the escalating confrontation. Comments range from support to condemnation, creating a real-time trial by social media that neither man can control. Police sirens become audible in the distance, growing louder as they approach the restaurant. Bradley's expression shows satisfaction at the sound, while Sarah looks increasingly distressed at the situation spiraling beyond her control. Finally, Bradley says into his phone camera, law enforcement is arriving. We'll see how confident this thief is when real authorities get involved. Detective Rivera enters the restaurant with the measured pace of someone who's handled countless similar calls. His experienced eyes quickly assess the scene. The agitated businessman with his phone camera, the calm black man standing near a corner table, the nervous young employee behind the counter, and the crowd of curious onlookers. What seems to be the problem here? Rivera asks, his voice carrying the authority of his badge and years of experience. Bradley immediately launches into his account, his words tumbling over each other in his eagerness to present his case. Officer, thank God you're here. This man stole my phone while I was in the restroom. iPhone 15 Pro Max, worth over $1,000. He was sitting right there. He points dramatically at Corey. With perfect access to my table, Rivera's eyes move to Corey, and something flickers across his face, a moment of recognition quickly suppressed. And you, sir? What's your version of events? Corey meets the detective's gaze steadily. I've been sitting at my table eating lunch for the past 30 minutes. I haven't approached his table, haven't touched his belongings, and haven't stolen anything. Bradley interrupts before Rivera can respond. Of course he'd deny it. Officer, you need to understand something about this neighborhood. It's been declining for years. Property values dropping, crime increasing. I've been doing business here for a decade, and I've seen the changes firsthand. The racist subtext isn't lost on Rivera, whose expression hardens slightly. Let's focus on the facts, sir. Do you have any evidence that this gentleman took your phone? Evidence? Bradley's voice rises again. He was the only person in position to take it. Look at him. Does he look like he belongs in a place like this? Does he look like someone who could afford a phone like mine legitimately? The questions hang in the air like accusations, each one designed to paint Corey as inherently suspicious, based solely on his appearance and race. Rivera's jaw tightens as he recognizes the familiar pattern of racial profiling, disguised as legitimate concern. Corey's phone buzzes with an incoming call, and he glances at the screen before answering quietly. This is Corey. Yes. I'm at the downtown location. No, just handling a customer service issue. I'll call you back in a few minutes. Bradley's eyes narrow at the brief conversation, suspicion building in his expression. Customer service issue? What kind of customer service issue requires you to take calls? Are you coordinating with accomplices? The accusation draws more uncomfortable shifting from the crowd, some clearly growing tired of Bradley's increasingly wild theories. Rivera holds up a hand for silence, his patience beginning to wear thin. Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down and let me handle this investigation. Making accusations without evidence isn't helping anyone. But Bradley is too far gone now, drunk on his own righteous indignation and the power of his platform. The live stream has over 500 viewers, comments flowing like a digital river of judgment and opinion. "Officer, I'm a taxpayer. I contribute to this community. I have rights here. And I'm being victimized by someone who probably doesn't even belong in this neighborhood." The words are carefully chosen to avoid direct racial slurs while making their intended meaning crystal clear. Rivera's expression darkens further as he recognizes the dog whistles and coded language that have plagued his career in law enforcement. Corey remains standing throughout the tirade, his dignity intact despite the verbal assault. His eyes never leave Bradley's face, and there's something in his gaze. Not anger, but a kind of patient watchfulness, as if he's waiting for something specific to occur. Mr. Rivera looks at Corey expectantly. "Adams." Corey replies simply. "Corey Adams." Something passes over Rivera's face at the name, a flicker of surprise quickly masked. But Bradley is too caught up in his performance to notice, continuing his stream with renewed vigor. "There you have it, folks. Corey Adams, the man who thinks he can just walk into a respectable establishment and take whatever he wants. This is what's happening to our communities, our neighborhoods, our way of life." The live stream comments explode with reactions, viewers arguing passionately about race, crime, and justice. Some defend Corey based on principle, while others support Bradley's narrative. The incident has become larger than itself, a flashpoint for broader social tensions and divisions. Rivera glances around the restaurant, noting the security camera positions and the growing crowd of onlookers. His experience tells him there's more to this situation than meets the eye, but protocol demands he investigate the theft allegation thoroughly. "Before we go any further," Rivera says, "I'd like to check the security footage. That should clear up any questions about what actually happened." Bradley's confidence falters slightly at the suggestion, but he quickly rallies. "Of course, check the cameras. But don't be surprised if they've been tampered with. These people stick together." The implication draws audible gasps from several patrons, the naked prejudice finally too blatant to ignore. Sarah looks like she might cry, caught between her job duties and her growing disgust at Bradley's behavior. Corey simply nods at Rivera's suggestion. "I think that's an excellent idea, Detective. The cameras will show exactly what happened." The tension in the restaurant reaches a breaking point as Rivera prepares to examine the security footage, but fate intervenes in the most unexpected way. From the men's restroom comes the unmistakable sound of an iPhone ringtone, the same custom tone Bradley had been showing off earlier to his lunch companion. Sarah, closest to the restroom, looks up with sudden understanding. "Sir, I think I hear your phone ringing." Bradley's face contorts with confusion and disbelief. "That's impossible. My phone was on the table, I'm certain of it." But the ringing continues, persistent and undeniably familiar. Sarah hurries to the restroom and returns moments later, holding Bradley's iPhone 15 Pro Max, its black case slightly damp, but otherwise undamaged. "It was on the floor behind the toilet," Sarah explains, her voice barely above a whisper. "It must have fallen out of your pocket." The restaurant falls silent except for the continued live stream, its viewers witnessing Bradley's accusations crumble in real time. Comments explode across the screen, some mocking Bradley's mistake, others defending Corey, many demanding apologies and accountability. Bradley stares at his recovered phone as if it were a foreign object, his mind struggling to process the implications. "But I was sure. How could I have—" "Mistakes happen," Corey says quietly, his voice carrying no trace of smugness or satisfaction. "Perhaps now you can apologize to Sarah for accusing her of being part of a criminal conspiracy." But Bradley's embarrassment quickly transforms into defensive anger. Rather than acknowledging his error, he doubles down on his suspicions. This doesn't prove anything. How do I know you didn't plant it there? How do I know you didn't go through my pockets first? Detective Rivera's patience finally snaps. Sir, your phone was found exactly where it would be if it fell from your pocket. There's no evidence of any crime here except false accusations. Bradley's live stream continues broadcasting his humiliation to hundreds of viewers, but he seems oblivious to the damage he's inflicting on his own reputation. Officer, you don't understand. These people are crafty. They could have staged this whole thing. Rivera looks more closely at Corey, and recognition dawns fully in his eyes. Corey? Corey Adams? I thought you looked familiar. Corey nods slightly, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Hello, Detective Rivera. It's been a while since our paths crossed. Bradley looks between them with growing confusion and alarm. You two know each other? Is this some kind of setup? Rivera chuckles, but there's no humor in the sound. Mr. Thornton, do you have any idea who you've been accusing of theft? Some random guy who hangs around restaurants looking for opportunities, Bradley replies, his certainty beginning to waver. Rivera shakes his head slowly. This random guy is Corey Adams, CEO and founder of Burgerville Corporation. You know, the company that owns this restaurant and 24 others throughout the metropolitan area. The words hit Bradley like a physical blow. His face goes through a series of expressions: disbelief, confusion, dawning horror, and finally, abject panic. The livestream chat explodes with reactions as viewers process this revelation. Corey's smile becomes more pronounced as he watches Bradley's world crumble. That's correct. I own this establishment, along with the building it sits in and the parking lot where your BMW is currently parked. Sarah's jaw drops as she stares at Corey with new eyes. You're our CEO? The one who sends those company-wide emails about treating customers with respect and dignity? The very same, Corey confirms, his voice warm as he addresses her. And I want you to know that you've handled this situation with remarkable professionalism under extremely difficult circumstances. I'll make sure your manager knows about your performance today. Bradley's phone continues live streaming his humiliation to an audience that has grown to over 1,000 viewers. Comments flood the screen faster than anyone can read them, most condemning his behavior and praising Corey's restraint. This can't be real, Bradley stammers, his voice barely audible. You look like... Like what? Corey asks, his tone mild but his eyes sharp. Like someone who doesn't belong in a nice restaurant? Like someone who can't afford to eat here? Like someone you can dismiss and demean based on the color of my skin? Rivera watches the exchange with professional interest, recognizing the careful way Corey is handling the situation. This isn't his first encounter with the CEO, and he knows Corey well enough to understand that there's more coming. Corey pulls out his own phone and speed dials a number. Janet, this is Corey. I'm at the downtown location and we have a situation that needs immediate attention. Yes, there's been an incident involving racial profiling that's currently being live-streamed on social media. The person responsible is Bradley Thornton, of Thornton and Associates Real Estate. Bradley's remaining color drains from his face as he hears his full name and company mentioned. His hand moves instinctively toward his phone to end the live stream, but Corey's next words stop him cold. Leave the stream running, Mr. Thornton. Your audience deserves to see how this plays out. Corey continues his phone conversation, his voice carrying easily through the silent restaurant. Janet, I want you to monitor social media mentions of our brand for the next 24 hours. Also, please pull our files on any real estate partnerships we might have with Thornton and Associates. Yes, I'll hold. The implications of Corey's power and connections begin to sink in for Bradley. His business relationships, his reputation, his entire career could be destroyed by the video evidence of his behavior that's being broadcast live to an ever-growing audience. Detective Rivera steps closer to Corey, speaking in a low voice that nonetheless carries to Bradley's sensitive ears. Corey, you want to press charges for false accusation and defamation? You'd have a solid case. Corey considers this for a moment, his eyes never leaving Bradley's increasingly panicked face. Let's see what kind of man Mr. Thornton really is first. Sometimes people surprise you when they're given a chance to do the right thing. The challenge hangs in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Bradley's live stream audience waits to see his response, their comments creating a real-time jury of public opinion that will judge his next actions. I don't understand, Bradley stammers, his carefully constructed facade finally cracking completely. How was I supposed to know? You don't look like a CEO, you don't dress like one. Corey's response is delivered with surgical precision. And how exactly should a CEO look, Mr. Thornton? What specific characteristics should I display to earn your respect and avoid your accusations? The question exposes the racist assumptions underlying Bradley's entire worldview, and the livestream audience recognizes it immediately. Comments condemn Bradley's prejudice while praising Corey's intelligent handling of the situation. Sarah watches the exchange with growing admiration for her unknown boss and mounting disgust for the customer she'd been forced to serve. Other restaurant patrons begin to openly express their support for Corey and their disapproval of Bradley's behavior. Corey's phone conversation continues as Janet provides updates on the social media response. How many views now? 15,000? And climbing? Yes, I can see the comments from here. No, don't take any action yet. Let's see if Mr. Thornton wants to handle this himself. The power dynamic has completely reversed. Bradley, who entered the restaurant as the embodiment of privilege and authority, now stands exposed and vulnerable before an audience of thousands. Corey, whom he'd dismissed and dehumanized, reveals himself as someone with the power to destroy everything Bradley has built. But perhaps most importantly, the live stream has created a permanent record of the encounter, ensuring that Bradley's words and actions will follow him long after he leaves the restaurant. Corey ends his call with Janet and turns his full attention to Bradley, whose live stream continues broadcasting to an audience that has swelled to over 2,000 viewers. The comments section has become a torrent of condemnation, with viewers sharing the stream across multiple platforms and demanding accountability. Janet opens her eyes and demands a sense of order and resolve. But what she sees, Mr. Thornton, Corey begins, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to boardroom negotiations and difficult conversations. You mentioned that you've been doing business in this neighborhood for 10 years. That means you've likely benefited from the economic development that companies like mine have brought to this area. Bradley nods numbly, beginning to understand the full scope of his predicament. You also mentioned that you bring clients to this restaurant. Corey continues. I'm curious, when you bring those clients here, do you tell them that you consider some of our customers to be inherently criminal based on their appearance? The question cuts through Bradley's remaining defenses like a blade. His real estate business depends heavily on reputation and relationships, particularly in a diverse city where discrimination lawsuits can destroy careers overnight. I never meant, Bradley starts, but Corey raises a hand for silence. Let me share something with you and your audience, Corey says, his tone becoming more conversational. When I started Burgerville Corporation 15 years ago, I had $300 to my name and a dream of creating restaurants that truly served everyone. Not just people who could afford expensive suits or drove luxury cars, but working families, students, elderly people on fixed incomes, everyone. Sarah listens with rapt attention, finally understanding the vision behind the company's employee handbook and customer service policies. Every single one of our locations hires locally, Corey continues. We've created over 800 jobs in this city, many of them for people who other employers wouldn't consider. Ex-offenders looking for second chances, single mothers needing flexible schedules, Students working their way through college, like Sarah here. The live stream audience begins sharing their own stories in the comments. Employees of Burgerville locations sharing positive experiences. Customers praising the company's community involvement. Former employees crediting Corey's hiring policies with turning their lives around. Bradley's phone rings and he glances at the screen to see his business partner's name. He declines the call, but it rings again immediately. Then his office line. Then his partner again. Word is clearly spreading through his professional network faster than he can control. Answer it, Corey suggests mildly. I'm sure they're calling with important business matters. Bradley reluctantly accepts the next call, putting it on speaker at Corey's gestured request. His business partner's voice explodes through the phone with panic and anger. Bradley, what the hell is going on? I've got 3 different people sending me a video of you accusing some black guy of theft. Please tell me this isn't real. Tom, I can explain, Bradley begins, but his partner cuts him off. Explain? Bradley, do you realize what you've done? The Henderson Project? The one you were just bragging about on your stream? The developer is Corey Adams. Burgerville Corporation is one of our biggest clients. The revelation hits Bradley like a physical blow. The $50 million project he'd been boasting about, the deal that would secure his financial future, depends entirely on the man he's just spent the last hour humiliating and defaming. Corey watches with detached interest as Bradley's world continues to collapse. Tom sounds upset, he observes mildly. Perhaps you should call him back when you've had time to think about how you want to handle this situation. Bradley ends the call with shaking hands, finally understanding the full magnitude of his mistake. His live stream continues recording every moment of his humiliation, the viewer count now approaching 3,000 as the video spreads across social media platforms. Mr. Thornton, Corey says, his voice taking on a more serious tone, I want you to understand something. What happened here today wasn't just about a misplaced phone. It was about respect, dignity, and the assumptions we make about people based on their appearance. Detective Rivera watches the exchange with professional appreciation, recognizing Corey's masterful handling of a delicate situation. Rather than simply crushing Bradley with his power and influence, Corey is using this moment as a teaching opportunity. You assumed I was a criminal because of my race, Corey continues. You questioned my right to be in this restaurant, my ability to pay for my meal, even my basic humanity. And when your mistake was revealed, instead of apologizing, you doubled down and accused me of an elaborate conspiracy. The live stream comments have become overwhelmingly supportive of Corey, with viewers sharing the video and calling for boycotts of Bradley's real estate company. Several local news outlets have already reached out to Janet for comment, recognizing the viral potential of the story. Sarah approaches Corey hesitantly. Mr. Adams, I want to apologize for not standing up to him more forcefully. I was scared of losing my job, but that's no excuse for allowing a customer to be treated that way. Corey's expression softens as he addresses the young woman. Sarah, you handled an impossible situation with grace and professionalism. You didn't create this conflict, and you shouldn't bear responsibility for his choices. He turns back to Bradley, whose face has gone ashen as more calls flood his phone. However, Mr. Thornton does bear responsibility for his choices, and now he gets to live with the consequences. Corey's phone buzzes with a text from Janet, and he glances at the screen before sharing the information. Mr. Thornton, I thought you might be interested to know that your video has been shared over 500 times in the last 10 minutes. The hashtag #BurgerPalaceRacist is trending locally. Bradley's remaining composure finally cracks completely. Please, he whispers, his voice barely audible above the restaurant's ambient noise. I have a family, a business. I made a mistake, but I can't lose everything over this. Corey studies him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Mr. Thornton, the question isn't whether you'll face consequences for your actions. The question is what kind of consequences there'll be. and whether you'll learn anything from them. The power to destroy Bradley's life rests entirely in Corey's hands now, and everyone in the restaurant understands it. The live stream audience waits to see what kind of man Corey Adams really is when given the opportunity for revenge. Corey takes a deep breath and looks around the restaurant, his eyes taking in the faces of the customers and staff who have witnessed this entire ordeal. The live stream continues, but the energy in the room has shifted from confrontation to something more contemplative. "Mr. Thornton," Corey begins, his voice carrying a weight that comes from years of leadership and hard-earned wisdom. "I want to share something with you that I learned a long time ago. Sitting in a restaurant very much like this one, Bradley looks up with desperate hope, clinging to any possibility of redemption. 15 years ago, I was unemployed, practically homeless, and eating my last meal before I planned to leave this city forever. I sat in that booth over there," Corey points to a corner table, "and watched people look at me the same way you looked at me today, with suspicion, disgust, and the assumption that I didn't belong." Sarah and Detective Rivera listen intently, understanding that they're witnessing something profound unfold. "But instead of letting their judgment define me, I made a decision. I decided that I would create something better. Not just for myself, but for everyone who had ever felt unwelcome, unwanted, or unworthy based on someone else's prejudice." Corey walks slowly through the restaurant as he speaks, his presence commanding attention from everyone present. "Every decision I've made in building this company has been guided by that memory. Every hiring policy, every training program, every customer service standard reflects my belief that everyone deserves dignity and respect." Bradley's live stream audience has grown quieter, the comments becoming more thoughtful as viewers absorb Corey's words. "You asked earlier what I contribute to this community," Corey continues, addressing Bradley directly. "Burgerville Corporation doesn't just provide jobs, we provide opportunities. Second chances for people who've made mistakes. First chances for people who've never been given one. Training and advancement for people like Sarah, who are working to build better lives for themselves." Sarah wipes away a tear, moved by her CEO's words and understanding for the first time the true mission behind her workplace. "We sponsor local youth programs, support community colleges, and invest in neighborhood development. Not because it's good for business, though it is, but because it's the right thing to do." Corey returns to stand before Bradley, who has remained silent throughout this explanation. "The question now, Mr. Thornton, is what you choose to do with this experience. You can continue down the path of defensiveness and blame, or you can use this moment to examine your own assumptions and biases." Detective Rivera steps forward slightly. "Corey, you still have the right to press charges. False accusation, defamation, disturbing the peace. We could make several charges stick." Corey considers this for a moment, then shakes his head. "Detective, I appreciate that, but I think Mr. Thornton's punishment is already unfolding in real time." He gestures toward Bradley's phone, where the live stream continues broadcasting to thousands of viewers. "Sometimes the best teacher is natural consequences." Corey pulls out his own phone and makes another call. "Janet, please prepare a statement for the media. I want to emphasize that this incident, while unfortunate, represents an opportunity for dialogue about unconscious bias and the importance of treating all people with dignity." "Yes. I'll review it before it goes out." Bradley watches this display of measured, professional response with growing understanding of how outmatched he was from the beginning. Corey Adams isn't just successful. He's sophisticated, thoughtful, and strategic in ways Bradley never imagined. "Mr. Thornton," Corey says after ending his call, "I'm going to offer you something you didn't offer me. A choice. You can leave here and pretend this never happened, letting your business and reputation suffer whatever consequences come naturally, or You can take responsibility for your actions and use this as an opportunity to grow. The restaurant waits in silence for Bradley's response, the live stream audience equally curious about his decision. What would that look like? Bradley asks quietly, his voice hoarse from shame and exhaustion. Corey smiles slightly. It would start with a genuine apology. Not to me, I'll be fine regardless, but to Sarah, who you accused of criminal conspiracy, to the other customers you made uncomfortable with your assumptions, and to your audience, who deserve to hear you acknowledge that your behavior was wrong. He pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in. After that, we can talk about how you might contribute positively to the community you claim to care about. The live stream comments begin shifting again, some viewers expressing skepticism about Bradley's capacity for change, others hoping for genuine redemption. The story has become larger than just a confrontation in a restaurant. It's become a test of whether people can learn and grow from their mistakes. Corey extends his hand toward Bradley in a gesture that surprises everyone present. The choice is yours, Mr. Thornton. But choose carefully. The internet never forgets, but it can sometimes forgive. Corey looks directly at Bradley's phone camera, addressing the thousands of viewers who have witnessed this entire encounter. His presence fills the frame with quiet authority and unmistakable dignity. To everyone watching this, Corey begins, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who has built something meaningful from nothing. I want you to remember that change happens one conversation at a time, one interaction at a time, one choice at a time. He glances around the restaurant, taking in the faces of the staff and customers who have become unwitting participants in this viral moment. If you see someone being treated unfairly because of their appearance, their accent, or their background, speak up. If you catch yourself making assumptions about people, pause and question those thoughts. Sarah steps into the frame, her young face serious but hopeful. And if you're ever in a Burgerville restaurant, know that everyone is welcome here. Everyone. Corey nods approvingly at his employee's words. That's right. We built this company on the principle that dignity isn't determined by your designer labels or your bank account. It's your birthright as a human being. Bradley finally steps forward, his humiliation complete but his phone still broadcasting. I want to apologize. To Sarah, to Mr. Adams, to everyone who witnessed my behavior. I was wrong, and I'm going to work to be better. Corey studies Bradley's face for signs of genuine remorse versus mere damage control. Actions speak louder than words, Mr. Thornton. We'll see what you choose to do next. He turns back to the camera with a slight smile that suggests he knows something the audience doesn't. And to those viewers who might be wondering whether this was all some elaborate setup, let me assure you it wasn't. But it does prove something important. You never know who you're really talking to. Corey reaches into his hoodie pocket and pulls out a simple business card, holding it up to the camera. Corey Adams, CEO, Burgerville Corporation. Sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones you least expect. The camera captures Sarah's amazed expression as she processes everything she's learned about her boss. Detective Rivera chuckles in the background, having witnessed Corey's quiet revolution firsthand. Visit any of our 25 locations, Corey continues, and you'll see what happens when a business truly commits to equality and respect. And Mr. Thornton? He looks directly at Bradley, who has ended his live stream but remains rooted in place by shock and shame. Remember that community service we discussed? 40 hours at the youth center, teaching financial literacy. Consider it an investment in learning how to see people as they really are, not as your prejudices tell you they should be. Corey pockets his business card and heads toward the exit, pausing only to address Sarah one final time. Excellent work today. We'll talk about that promotion soon. As the restaurant door closes behind him, the remaining patrons burst into applause. Bradley stands alone in the center of the dining room, his expensive suit wrinkled, his confidence shattered, and his phone silent after broadcasting his humiliation to thousands of strangers. The story will spread across social media for days, spawning discussions about unconscious bias, the assumptions we make about success, and the power of dignity in the face of discrimination. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of confrontation, one truth remains crystal clear. Never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book might just be a bestseller.